Also look at the kind of top 3 selling subcategories, right? The first one was curling irons. I don't know why curling irons.
I don't even know what that is.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Impulso podcast. So on today's episode, we're going to be talking about TikTok Shop and specifically TikTok Shop in the United States, because last week we launched a report in collaboration with one of our partners, CapCut. And the report is called TikTok Shop in the US. If you guys are interested, I will link the report down in the show notes below. It is free, so go and download it to find out some interesting numbers. And the reason why we did a report on TikTok Shop in the US is because TikTok Shop has become a very meaningful marketplace in the US, right? They reached an annual GMV of about $9 billion US.
That was last year?
In 2024, making them the biggest market on TikTok Shop, for TikTok Shop. Taking over Indonesia, right?
Bigger than Indonesia. Okay.
Bigger than Indonesia. What was Indonesia's GMV?
6 point something.
6 point something.
So, but Indonesia came much earlier compared to the US. It was launched in 2021, and for US it's
2023.
September 2023. Yes. So this has been a year and 4 months.
Yeah. So a year and a couple months, but of course it kind of has a pretty big developed ecosystem already, right? There's almost 400,000 stores on TikTok Shop in the US, and of course 11 million influencers.
11 million influencers?
It's interesting, right? But it also makes sense because technically TikTok has one of the largest user base in the US as well.
Yeah,
I think they have
170 million monthly active users.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that user base is stable for a while, and they have probably reached a saturation point. I mean, any further growth will be small.
But I guess it's more of how TikTok can kind of capture the GMV from this big amount of users.
Yeah,
right?
so basically, as a social platform, in the initial phase, you grow the user base. But after that, you have retained, you have achieved a certain user base. After the growth starts to slow down, and you need to find ways to monetize that. Otherwise, the investor will say that, okay, why did you spend all this money acquiring all these users?
And I think TikTok, or rather TikTok Shop, has multiple channels for them to kind of capture this GMV as well, right? So they have video, which contributes to about 58% of their GMV. TikTok Shop,
which is like marketplace.
Yeah, it's a more traditional e-commerce. It contributes about 32% of GMV, whereas Live contributes about only 10%.
The video lead you straight to the shop anyway.
I think shop means people who directly go to the shop tab,
to buy.
And buy.
Yeah. So shop means that you don't have to pay a commission to an influencer.
But technically, as a brand, you can make your own videos.
Yeah. No, I think the good thing about working with the CapCut for this report is that they have lots of data. I think they've captured tens of millions of videos and all the analytics. And we actually went deep into the data that they have captured. So the video they do, I think 90% of the videos that actually lead to sales are generated by influencers. Only 10% are from shops directly without influencers being paid. So obviously, I mean, let's step back further. So the way for TikTok to monetize, obviously the most obvious one is ads, advertisements, right? People pay for it. And I think this is how companies like Meta has been monetizing. But of course, I think TikTok itself has made, or rather ByteDance, the parent company, has made a conscious decision that they want to go even deeper to close the transaction loop. How does that differ from ads? I mean, if you think about ads, so what format you do with ads on Facebook? You put banners, you put things into the timeline and the feed, etc. So for TikTok, it's different, right? I mean, because it's full screen video, so you can't sort of embed the ads into your feed. And when it tries to give you too many ads, you just simply like swipe it away. So obviously, but on the other hand, I think on the platform, there are a lot of content creators. There are lots of people creating content. I mean, I think somebody did a study that most of the US kids want to be influencers when they grow up.
Oh yeah, I think there was some research about that. It was like, I think they wanted to be, back then it was like a YouTuber. Yeah. But now it's probably influencer across multiple platforms.
I think historically it was very, very hard for small and micro influencers to monetize through ads, right? I mean, if I am a brand, I go to the ad agency and does ad agency have the energy to engage with lots of small influencers? They probably engage the big ones. I mean, pay a bit of money and give me the impressions. But I think TikTok decided to go deep to close the transaction loop, be it e-commerce, be it local services like food, etc. So the objective is that people can transact directly on TikTok Shop, right? And the influencers can immediately know that, okay, I mean, if I promote a product, I mean, how much sales is that generating and how much commission I should be earning. So that unlocks, I think we mentioned, right, 11 million influencers created videos that are related to sales on a platform. So obviously, just to understand these three different formats. I mean, videos is that you record a short video, you post it on your profile, and the short video would have a link to a product, and people will buy it there. And shop is a separate tab, right? Functions like
it's a separate tab. It's just an e-commerce platform.
Yeah, people go there and search for products, right? Yeah. So live, which is interesting because we have been talking a lot with friends about live, and it's only 10% of the total GMV in the US. Does that mean that there's more potential? Or does it mean there's an obstacle about realizing that?
How to utilize live, right? Another thing that was interesting to us from the report as well was that, of course, we looked at the breakdown of the categories, right, in terms of GMV, and beauty and personal care was top. So it's 21% of GMV attributed to beauty and personal. And this is not just in the US. We are seeing this trend generally across Southeast Asia. And I think even in China, right, for, let's say, video commerce, live commerce, beauty and personal care seem to be the top category.
Yeah, I think when Taobao first started live commerce, and for many years, the top two influencers was Taobao, and the first one selling purely sort of lipsticks and all the kind of beauty products, and the second one was selling women's fashion. But beauty has been a very, very big category everywhere.
Why do you think beauty and personal care is such a big category? Do you think it's because of the product? Like, okay, so for example, when you buy like makeup products, right?
I don't buy makeup products, but yeah.
When you buy makeup products, I look at the wrong person. When you buy makeup products, you want to see like the color, the shade and all. Or do you think it's because of generally the demographic on TikTok are more likely to be women, or women are more likely to purchase products from TikTok? And so the categories that they are more likely to purchase from tend to be the more well-performing categories.
Firstly, I don't think it's just women. I think it's the age group of people that uses TikTok. So this is the age group of people that will use makeup regardless of men or women. Because now more men are using makeup also, right? And also it's because like when you buy makeup, for me, the consumer tends to look at the packaging. And packaging is something that's very easy to sell on TikTok live. And you just like you don't even have to show the quality of the product, whether it's good or not. You just show the packaging and then you can swatch it on your hand and it's all instant. And there's also this factor of life where like you can tell them, oh, I don't really like this shade. Can you choose another shade to swatch on your skin?
Oh, so they can test
so
the colors for
it's
you,
so
right?
much easier to buy like beauty stuff because you don't have to go to the actual shop. So now they take away the need to go to the actual shop and you can just buy everything on the live.
It was interesting. I think about a year and a half ago, we did some due diligence for the cosmetic sector in Southeast Asia, and we realized that a lot of the purchasing behavior still happen offline. With skincare, less so because people stick to one product and they know what they want, they buy. But for cosmetics, I mean, people like to try new things. And with the traditional format of you just showing product description, you just show a few pictures, people don't feel it, right?
Yeah.
So you could offline someone, you can ask questions, someone demonstrate it to you. And I think TikTok Shop per se offers a even deeper sort of experience where you can look at it, right? I mean, you can see how other users are asking questions, and that probably helps you make decisions. Also, it's a product that's relatively easier to demonstrate.
Actually, it's a product that's very easy to demonstrate, and right, you just have to explain and all. So
and show,
show, and you can do swatches, especially for like colors and all. I think what's interesting as well is, so in the report we also looked at the kind of top 3 selling subcategories, right? So the first one was curling irons. I don't know why curling irons.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a very specific category. Like, so the image we use, this is a straightener / curling iron. I have this. It's very useful. I love it. So you can straighten or curl.
It's 2 in 1.
Yeah. But you use one tool. So usually you use a straightener or you use a hair curler. Okay. But this one is like both.
So basically, depending on mode, your hair will be straight or curl.
Yeah. So when you travel, right, it's easier because you just bring one. Like curling iron. The second product is jeans. And then the third is sports collectible cards.
I mean, collectible cards I can kind of understand because it's kind of like interest-based product, and there are actually multiple e-commerce platforms will thrive on just collectibles.
And there's like a community of users that are kind of... For jeans, I don't get though, because for me, jeans are something you have to try on in store.
I mean, the whole fashion, right?
Yeah, but like tops are a lot easier to buy online. So it's interesting that jeans is the second top selling subcategories in the US.
But it might be because of the lower price point as well, because jeans are traditionally more expensive, right?
Yeah.
So if you see like a pair of jeans on TikTok Shop that's cheaper, you just think, oh, I'll just buy it to try.
I mean, when you sell on TikTok Shop, you don't have to keep the inventory in all the different sort of stores. So obviously you can sell a massive volume and by having a good discount.
One thing that was interesting in our report as well is obviously the focus on influencers, right? So this is something that we briefly talked about earlier and how influencers are kind of a key driver behind TikTok Shop in the US. There are almost 11 million influencers who sell or at least sell products on TikTok Shop, be it their own brands or working with other brands, right? And they actually produce almost 90% of the total product videos on TikTok Shop last year. What's interesting, I think, is that the influencers seem to focus a lot more on video content as opposed to live. So obviously earlier we talked about the 3 different channels, right? And most of the influencers, at least 63% of them, focus on video only. And I think this could be because generally most of these influencers before TikTok Shop launched in the US, when they start generating content, most of them would start from video.
It's more comfortable, right?
It wouldn't make sense to do a live stream not if you're selling anything, but
there's this one influencer on TikTok. Her name is Anna Paul. So she's a beauty fashion influencer. She advertised for this mask and she didn't really it wasn't very outright. So she just used the mask in all of her videos. Like she was putting it on her face and the sales for this particular brand shot up 900%.
Wow. Yeah, from all her videos.
Sometimes it goes like a day in her life or she's just telling a story or ranting about something and she just has this mask on her face and she just say, oh yeah, this mask is very
the
good.
Mask.
Yeah, so she only links it after people ask her.
Okay.
But that's interesting because that's a behavior that influencers usually do things, right? I mean, they have videos, they produce videos and they share that on platforms. And many of them can do, I mean, especially some of the smaller influencers, they can do it on their own. But you guys have been to many live studios. I mean, you can't do it live on your own. You need a team.
No, it's very, because obviously a lot of the videos are kind of shot by the influencers themselves, right? Even if it's just, even if it's to promote a product, it's usually just them trying on the product or explaining the product. Whereas a live stream, usually to keep engaging people for 4 to 6 hours, you're live, you're just talking, When you film a video, you can do as many takes as you want.
But also in live streams, you have many more products and the purpose of the live stream is to sell your products. Maybe in the video, it's not just to sell the product, it's also to put out content.
I think that's important for influencers as well. Kind of, if you want your consumers to trust you
the
as an influencer, you have to balance between having paid content and constantly selling brands versus actually doing content that your followers are interested in watching.
But you see that in China there will be influencers who just do live, right? Who just completely focus on live and even they produce short videos is to basically attract people into the live studio. I mean, we've seen the videos. We look at the video they produce. They have some script and stuff. But at the end, they show you, okay, tonight at PM, go and watch our live. So the ecosystem is still very different.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. So the amount of influencers that just do live only on TikTok Shop is maybe 7%. Whereas in China, they are but I would say it's a different kind of influencer, right? If you start from video generated content and then you move into selling goods, you would tend to favor video content to sell the goods. But if you start from live, we've seen the 2 top KOLs from China. They weren't influencers.
They were not influencers before. I mean, one of them was actually a salesman in an offline store, and the other one was a model, I think. So she would model herself, and then she decided to sell clothes because she knows how to demonstrate clothes. So I think in multiple countries in Southeast Asia, you have live sessions. I mean, with sales above 1 million. So a couple of reasons for that. Of course, they started earlier and especially in the case of Vietnam, I don't know. I mean, we went to Vietnam so many times last year and we also had lots of friends from Vietnam who joined our immersions to China. And you see that a lot of the sessions they do is very similar to what people do in China.
Yes, it's even the studio setup and everything, it's very, very similar to what we see in China.
The top influencer in Vietnam were hardly selling curling iron.
Curling iron. Is it a top product in?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
I don't think so. I think it's probably a bit too expensive for the general public there.
Now it's interesting. So in China, when we look at it, right, so we don't have the top live streaming numbers, but recently Li Jiaqi, the lipstick king, who we were talking about, one of the first 2 kind of top posts, right? He recently did a Double 11 stream on Tmall, and he brought in a GMV of about $155 million.
He stopped streaming, right?
He stopped streaming for a while.
But it was he's MCN, right?
Organizing, okay. But he came back to do this Double 11 stream.
Oh wow, okay.
And $155 5 million. So this is like
And
70 times the top
Yeah.
live stream.
And I remember that there was one time where we were at one of the sites during the immersion, and they just finished a major live stream.
Yes.
And I think we were able to like check.
We got to see the behind the scenes.
Yeah, and we're told that okay, that session, I think which lasted about 4 hours, generated about 70 million RMB of sales, like $10 million US.
So the scale is so different. Obviously, this is something that we've seen. Obviously, we've been to China a few times, right? And we've had clients from America join us as well. And I think one thing that they ask, or one thing that they consider frequently, because obviously these are e-commerce enablers or e-commerce players, right? Is it a cultural thing? Like, do consumers in China behave differently from the consumers in the US? Which is why live selling seems to work so well in China, whereas it hasn't really picked up in the US, right? So you can see that Chinese consumers are a lot more used to buying things on not just live commerce, but through video commerce as well. Whereas in the US, it's kind of, they still stick to the more traditional e-commerce interface or maybe offline retail. Do you think it's a consumer thing?
I think at the end of the day, so some people are saying that, okay, consumers in China like to buy things by watching videos.
Yeah. Online.
And is that a cultural thing? And of course, the natural question you ask them is that, okay, 10 years ago, I mean, nobody was doing that in China. So I think the answer to these questions is to analyze, I mean, as we did in the immersion side, which are the critical factors that allowed this whole ecosystem to grow? And which are the factors that, I mean, we try to map that into the US, right? Which factors are already there? Which factors are not there? And if the factors are not there, but essential, and who will build it up?
If you go to the next slide, what we've seen in China what we've seen in China is that the live commerce ecosystem is very well developed, right? And based on our trips there and speaking with all the different clients, we know that what drove the kind of growth of live commerce and even e-commerce in China is really the ecosystem behind it. So the logistics, making sure that you have a closed loop. And when we talk about logistics, it's not just delivering the goods, right? It's also the return logistics, which allow people to return the goods that they buy online. Because of course this lowers the barrier of
making a decision, right?
Yeah. And of course, when we mapped that to the US, so this is also something we discussed in our TikTok Shop playbook report, right? Which we launched in August 2023. That was about a month before TikTok Shop actually launched in the US. So in the report, we talked a little bit about what were some of the factors, like you mentioned, the factors that enabled live commerce to take off in China that are present in the US. So obviously, I mean, e-commerce is pretty established in the US. They have the logistic infrastructure, the payment infrastructure there. They do have a large amount of brands as well as sellers
who are looking for cheaper traffic beyond marketplaces.
Yes. Of course, third is the habit of producing, watching live streams even before e-commerce. Is this true for the US? But that kind of died out. So I'm not sure if the younger generation, especially people who are using like TikTok Shop, are the generation that used to watch live.
I think Facebook had a live function, and there are also like Twitch and all other functions. The important thing about this ecosystem is that okay, you have the technical infrastructure for live out there, and of course in China, I mean, one of the key factors for this to grow up is all this entertainment live that people have been watching, and that sort of trend payment ecosystem and people's behavior, as well as the sort of the technologies behind, I mean, making the video smooth, etc., accelerating the content delivery.
Although people don't really do live sell in the US, they do have live streams, right? It's still a pretty big thing there.
Yeah.
But of course, I would say the ecosystem in US and in China is still quite different in terms of live commerce, right? So like what we mentioned before, most of the influencers in the US tend to prefer video content as compared to doing live. But
it's a different skill set.
Yes, like we said, it's a different skill set, right? To be able to speak for 4 to 6 hours, and not just speak, you're selling products, maybe 100 of products for like 4 to 6 hours non-stop. Sometimes you're doing it on your own, sometimes it's just 2 of you in the studio. It's very tiring. A lot of influencers probably, they might not want to do it as well, right? This is something we've kind of seen, we've heard in China that celebrities, influencers don't gravitate towards live commerce just because it's tiring for them.
It is hard. I mean, you look at celebrities who are actually spending a lot of time doing live commerce and they're hardworking. Yeah.
So I think this is something that's kind of lacking in the US now. There aren't enough like hosts, but also I think there isn't much motivation to be a live commerce host, right? So we know that a lot of kids in the US want to be influencers, but if you ask them to be like a live commerce host, I think most of them would know what it is. Whereas in China, it's probably something that people would think of wanting to do.
I think a couple of factors. I mean, in China, people still want to become rich. So young people, I mean, people talk about, lying flat, etc., but lots of young people still want to become rich, and they have role models, right? I mean, people who have become rich that way, and that inspire lots of people. I do feel that in the US, I can see the platform's effort, I mean, TikTok Shop's effort to make a few more role models, make them rich. But at the same time, they want to balance. The platform can't become dependent on one or two live posts. I think on that, you can play that clip that Alex Drew, the founder of Musical.ly, once mentioned about how to build a colony.
Building a community is very similar to running a country, running an economy. Yeah. So there are a lot of economic policies you can learn. And Instagram is Europe. Facebook is Europe. How can you do it? Economy in Europe is already very developed. And in your country, there is no population, there is not so many things going on, there is no economy. How can you attract those people to come in? The problem with Europe is the social class is already stabilized. For average citizen of Germany, of France, they have almost zero opportunity to go up in the social class, right? So now you have a new land. A very important thing is, in the beginning, you have to build a centralized economy, meaning that from wealth distribution point of view, you make sure majority of the wealth is distributed to a small percent of people to make sure these people get rich first, okay? And then these people became role model for other people living in Europe. And they see, hey, this is a normal guy, and he just went to America and he became super rich. I can do the same, right? And then lots of people came to your country, and then you grow population, you grow economy. But very importantly, you have to do decentralization in the same time. Having an American dream is good, but if it's only a dream, people will wake up eventually, right? They know they don't have the chance. They came here, they want to be rich, but after several weeks, several months, they can't be rich. So you have to decentralize your traffic model. You have to give the opportunity to average people and make sure they got satisfaction, make sure there are middle class coming up.
I guess that's true. That's kind of one of the issues that platforms in China face as well, right? If you're too reliant on one or two live hosts, what happens when they switch platforms?
But I think that's less of a worry for TikTok. More of a worry for platforms like Taobao, because Taobao is not natural entertainment platforms, and people are not there watching live in normal habit. And that caused I think, and then platforms, the KPI is very ROI driven. So that caused the sellers, the brands, the whole ecosystem to gravitate towards the top seller, because naturally, if you give the goods to the top sellers, and they are going to sell better.
Yeah.
And because they sell better, they have more negotiation power to negotiate better deals with the seller.
I think fundamentally it's also because of the cultural differences, right? Like in US, these influencers are very loud about their lifestyle. So they show their houses, their branded bags, their branded goods. So then these lifestyles become something that is very, children see these and they want it. So they desire for these branded goods or stuff.
They also want to be rich.
Yeah, right. But in China, people don't, they're not as ostentatious about it.
No, they're not. And it's actually a dangerous thing. I don't think it's culture difference. I think it's demographic difference. So I've been speaking with a few sort of MCNs. We'll talk about MCN in a bit, multi-channel networks in China, which try to expand to the US and recruit people to do live selling. And they reach out to the pool of influencers. I said, I mean, we've been discussing with them. I said, okay, it's wrong to reach out to the pool of existing influencers because they are used to a way of doing influencing, which is different from live selling. And what you should really do is you go offline to recruit all those good salespeople in kiosks, stores and stuff. And I think you've been to the marketplaces in China, right? During some of our immersions, and you can see that, people there, I'm trying very hard to sell.
Yeah.
And these are the best people, I mean, who you can convert into live sellers.
Actually, in China, what we see is a lot of them do live commerce as well. Even in
At the
stores,
store,
right? A lot
yeah,
of the salespeople are the
yeah.
ones actually doing live commerce. And like, of course, it makes sense. But I think that's also something that's kind of lacking in the US market yet, right? Essentially, this ecosystem of MCNs that help to not just train, but also maybe identify like potential live posts, and then of course working with them to source for products, and then doing live streams and all. Because obviously, to do a live stream by yourself, especially if you want to talk about doing it at the scale of China, it's impossible to do it on your own, right? You have the studio, you have like 100 products. How do you negotiate with the brands all on your own? So I guess that's kind of something that's kind of missing in the ecosystem in the US.
You remember like 3 of the MCNs that we went in China, they have this like pseudo mall. There, and so basically influencers can walk around and pick up products and try to sell, right? The MCNs would actually source for the goods, negotiate with the sellers, and figure out the price, the commission, and also making sure that the goods can be trusted. Because a key thing that live sellers need to do is that, if the goods they sell turn out to be, having some quality issues or trust issues, and they lose their credibility.
I think that's quite important for influencers in the US as well, right? When you're choosing to work with brands, you need to make sure that obviously the products are of a good quality and that you yourself would use these products.
So you can see that in China, there's a service ecosystem that's highly developed so that, the influencers or the sellers would just focus on selling.
So that's a question, right? How would this service or this whole ecosystem built around live commerce develop in the US? Because obviously, I don't think it's one drives the other. It's kind of, it all has to develop together, right? Like you did in China. The platforms have to push for it. Logistic players have to be able to handle the kind of volume that comes in from this live commerce. And then of course, you need to have a whole suite of like well-trained live commerce hosts who are able to sell to the consumers. And then you must have consumers who are willing to purchase from this stuff.
So you see, so with all these factors that need to be in place, and it will probably take someone's commitment to make some investment, continuous committed investment for a year or two or even longer. While the initial ROI doesn't make sense, that role has to be played by the platform, right? In China, when we spoke with some of the early participants of Taobao Live and some of the early participants of Douyin Live, and people tell you that in the early days, nothing made sense, right? So it doesn't work, the ROI is shit and stuff, but somehow the platform said, okay, we believe this will work, let's continue investing, let's continue sort of pushing. And then everybody else said, okay, oh, sure, the platform is willing to invest, let's continue working on it. Yeah.
But here's the thing, so technically now, TikTok's future in the US is kind of uncertain, right? And TikTok is kind of the main platform that is pushing this sort of video commerce, live commerce in the US. I'm sure other platforms are trying as well. So, for example, Amazon in the US.
Amazon's tried, and you have like other like the dedicated live platforms like Whatnot, etc. But the main driver at the moment is TikTok Shop, because when it starts to go full force with video commerce and live commerce, it doesn't have any baggage. It doesn't have an established customer base, seller base, who are used to a way of doing things. This is the same thing how it happened in China. Where you have a very established ecosystem, for you to change it is quite difficult.
So with kind of like the TikTok ban, not ban situation, very uncertain situation of what's going to happen to TikTok in the US, right? Do you think this is going to slow down the development of live commerce or live and video commerce in the US? Or do you think other platforms will come in and kind of develop themselves even more?
I think TikTok Shop is the main driver. So without it, the speed of development will be very different. Of course, there will be people trying to fill in the void. And one situation you can look at is after TikTok was banned in India. So many different platforms try to fill in the void, but nobody has achieved what TikTok had achieved in India. So of course the ecosystem will be different. But I think the seeds have been planted. So things will move, but just at a different speed. And obviously how different players would react to if TikTok eventually gets banned, and how different players will react to this would probably make a difference, because brands, they need to make allocation of resources and time and also discounts. So all these factors would come in, and I think without the strong commitment from the platform, things will be slow and things will probably go a little bit unexpected.
So I think that's all for today's episode of the Impulso podcast. If you guys are interested in finding out more data about TikTok Shop in the US, you can download our recent report. It will be linked in the show notes below. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, do like this video as well as subscribe to our channel. to stay up to date on the latest happenings and trends in tech, new retail, and the digital economy. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
The consequence of having one camera.